Just a short one. No. This is usually how to start the second question.
Page 15. Mandala. אדמה זו המשוחה בקטורת והתורה פרחים, העדויה בהר מרו בארבע היבשות, בשמש ובירח. העלה בדמיוני כעולם הבודה והגישה כמנחה. לכל היצורים הנודדים יהנו בעולם טהור זה. אידם גורו רטנה מנדלה כמיריית הימי.
Ignorance. So I hope ignorance, as I just explained it, or as I explained in the morning, deprecating or exaggerating, over-exaggerating, under-exaggerating, that I think makes sense. Just another way to clarify it. Oh, not, okay. Thank you. But then there's another type, or there's another two types, called innate, and the other word is intellectually acquired. Now that's again a weird word. It's not a very good word. But I think if we just explain it, it becomes clear. Innate misperceptions. They're innate wrong views that we're born with. So from a Buddhist perspective, we've had them since beginning this time. We've had them all the time. They were just always with us. I like the word instinctive. Not everyone likes the word instinctive so much, but it's almost like no one needs to teach us that. We're born, we have it. So these innate, or if you want, instinctive wrong views, there's so many of them. So one, of course, a favorite one is this innate sense, I live forever. I will live forever. So this I live my life according to that. It's like, yeah, intellectually I know, oh, I'm going to die one day. But innately, I have a sense, it's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be the day after tomorrow. Well, it's not going to be in a long time, and possibly never ever. So I live my life in a sense as if I was going to live forever. I mean, even as a nun, I do that. I mean, it's just a matter of, well, repeated remembrance that it could happen any day. But it's hard to do. So I get carried away and I forget, and so instinctively I feel I'm going to live forever. It ties into the other wrong perception that perceives myself to be permanent. I think I'm permanent. I have a sense I'm permanent. I know I change intellectually again, but this is where the head and the heart don't meet. And when I say the heart, I mean it's kind of weird, but actually the Tibetan word for mind can also mean heart. So it's actually not that far away. Anyway, when we talk about subtler mind, it also becomes a little clearer where the heart plays a part in mind. But anyway, the point is, I hold phenomena to be permanent. Whenever there's a strong emotion, check your mind. There's a sense it will last. When I get sick, why am I depressed when I get sick? It's just for a day. But somewhere there's a sense it's going to be forever. Right? If I was more aware, oh, it's passing. Just as I'm taught, just as I'm here, it's already getting better. But that's not the sense I have. So with everything, there's a sense of like being more permanent, more lasting, more concrete than it actually is. Especially in the sense of like not thinking of death. And our society is great for that misperception. It makes sure that we don't ever see death. I mean, it's not on the TV, only the bad news. It's not part of the media, not part of the advertisement and so forth. So it's kind of shoved to the back, so we're not reminded. It's bad news. So like a glamorous magazine. I mean, you find something about birth, but definitely not about death. And actually death, I mean, we have this sense that death is something finite. But actually birth is also a death. birth is the death of something that was before. And death is birth of something that is to come. So they're pretty equal. It's just where we focus on. If we focus on in terms of birth, we focus on the coming together. We don't actually think about the end of that which was before. Right? And life in the womb. I got what Rita sent me. I got something.
Funny, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we could be put on the Dharma.
I translated it into English, so maybe I can send it out.
Yeah, we send it out. This is really beautiful. Anyway, I won't give it away. Rita's got something about womb and stuff and past and future lives. That's very beautiful. Anyway, but the point is, it's the birth is the end of something else, it's the death of something else. If there is past lives, anyway, think about it, like if there's a 50% chance that there were lives before, then our birth in this lifetime is the death of that which was before, right? The death in this lifetime is the birth of something else. So it's both a birth and death, but we don't see it in that way. We only see one side of it and see it as something finite. Every moment, in fact, is a moment, a death of one thing and the birth of something else. Every morning, every night we go to sleep. It's actually very similar. The process of going to sleep and the process of dying physically is quite similar in terms of the mind. I mean, on a certain level, when it comes to the subtle energy winds, very similar. So every night we die, every morning we're born, in a sense. So there's the death of, last night it was the death of the 25th of November. This morning it was the birth of the 26th of November. Tonight's the death of the 26th of November and the birth then, and so on. Anyway, so a different way of looking at it, because it's just not as dark as it is. It's just a matter of perspective. However, there will be the last day of my life, and I don't know when that is, and I don't take that into consideration. Instinctively. Instinctively, you'll be surprised, even in societies that accept the law of cause and effect. Tibetans. It's part of their life. Instinctively, they still feel, well, if something happens, then everyone else blames everyone else, right? It's like something happens. Really, whatever happens to us, we have some responsibility. It's actions in the past that we've accumulated. That's the result. The result are experienced. So, if I'm aware of that, when something horrible happens to me, I don't feel like an innocent, or I don't feel like a helpless victim. I don't feel like helpless because, well, if I don't want that for me to happen again, I can change it, right? I can change things. I make some change in the future. So whatever happens to me, there's also external circumstances that are responsible. However, I play a part in that. So I find that very empowering, right? It's like I'm not totally exposed. I'm not totally ausliefern. The English word for ausliefern. Ausgeliefert.
Helpless, weak.
Yeah.
Exposed?
Yeah, exposed. Okay. Helpless.
Under the mercy of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great.
Under the mercy of.
So many people understand. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so it gives me that kind of, strength to do something. But anyway, the point is, nevertheless, even though I believe in past and future lives, I have this instinctive sense, blame everyone else. Tibetans do the same thing. Indians do the same thing. That's their culture to believe in the law of karma, in the law of, in past and future lives. And still, instinctively, it doesn't seem that way. Of course, innately, of course, we also have the sense of an inherently, intrinsically existent self. I mean, the most famous kind of misperception. So we have all these innate senses of this, that, and the other. And they all come down to that innate sense of ignorance, actually. It all comes down to that. So if you learn more about it, it makes sense that if you perceive phenomena to be concrete and objective, you also perceive them to be permanent. It's the expression, one is the expression of the other. If we concretize, if we hold on to things and we draw fixed lines around them, we need to also perceive them to be permanent. It just happens naturally. Anyway, but that is only the innate one. Then there's the intellectually acquired, which actually, I don't like the word intellectually, I don't like the word acquired, and so it's not a word I really like, but what else could I call it? But if I describe it, it's views that One of their causes are instinctive wrong views, and then these instinctive wrong views have led us to have philosophical, religious, scientific, and cultural views and beliefs that we're not born with them, but we've developed over time. Right? So they're based on the view that I'm permanent, for example. They're based on the view that I exist inherently, or other people exist inherently. They're based on that, but then on top of that, we add more to it. So good examples for that are, for example, well, I've given an example of a view that people held at the time of the Buddha, 2,600 years ago. As I told you this morning, there was a lot of emphasis on finding what is the self, what is the I. You know, what is it actually? So there was a philosophical view that explained that the I is permanent, the I of the soul is permanent, partless, and independent of mind and body. There's actually a whole school that asserted that. So that was it was a philosophical view that people held. Nowadays we have those views too. For example, a soul. I think I've talked about this last year. I grew up thinking that the soul was in a heart shape, was heart-shaped, and when my grandmother died, it had little wings, and it flew out of my grandmother's mouth into heaven. Right? That was my view of soul. That's how I grew up. So that was my view of, that's my grandmother. That's the self of my grandmother, the soul, the essence of her. That's a view that's not, I wasn't born with that view. I was educated. I saw pictures of that, and slowly my grandmother probably told me about it, and so therefore I had this view. Then there's the Austrian psychoanalyst who talked about the ego and the superego. Right? So there you have a view that's been cultured of there's like an ego plus a superego. Two kinds of kind of independent egos. Also, there's cultural ideas of be someone in the world. Find yourself. Go find yourself. Be yourself. Be who you are. I mean, it's so funny. We have these funny ideas about the self. Like, again, this is something I mentioned during the talks last year. When we have a sense, I'm just not myself today.
Who are you?
What does that actually mean? I'm not myself today. It's like, who am I actually? I mean, it's the mind and body, they are who they are, right? The body is the body, the mind is the mind, but I'm not myself. So it's like something totally separate there, that it's just not oneself. And I think that a lot. I'm just not myself today. And I think, oh, what am I thinking here? It comes a lot. It's just this sense, oh, I'm just not myself. But that's, again, that sense, it's culturally kind of fostered. That idea is culturally fostered, and it is the result of the innate wrong perception of the self, or the intellectually acquired, or both. Does that make sense? So these are all examples, yes, so intellectually, philosophically, these views have been fostered, and they're therefore not innate, but intellectually acquired, but based on the innate view. Then there's other views, of course. For example, the intellectually acquired view that there's no past and future lives. Based on the scientific idea, well, that our mind is the same as the brain, it's just chemical reactions, and when they stop, the mind stops. So from a Buddhist perspective, saying that brain and mind are exactly the same, then of course, if that is the case, hypothetically, past and future life couldn't exist, because when the brain rots, the mind rots. Sorry for my language, but you know, when one stops, the other one stops. Right? One disintegrates, the other one disintegrates. So all that can happen when we die is we stop existing. Okay? The mind slowly disintegrates. Actually, that's the other banality. It's like when we die, that's the end of conscious. So if the brain and the mind were the same, the brain, as long as the brain is there, the mind would have to continue existing. The mind would slowly go out of existence, as the brain goes slowly out of existence. But that's where science and logic that's where it goes, the moment our brain, doesn't function anymore, then the mind is gone and the brain slowly disintegrates. Though mind and brain are the same, right? It's actually not possible that mind and brain are the same, even from a scientific point of view. But nevertheless, these are scientific views that are intellectually acquired. We're not born with them. We learn about them and we then take them on. And therefore the view that they're in past and future lives, the intellectually acquired one is an example that I just gave. Right? The view that mind and brain are the same. And of course, the religious believe in an omnipresent God that is responsible for all our problems. Also intellectually acquired. I mean, Buddhists don't say that there's no God. There's God, but there's no omnipotent, creator of all our problems God. That is not accepted. Okay. And then the next explanation I gave here in this reading, so this basically completes those the two types of misperceptions of reality. The one that is innate, instinctive, and the other one that arises from that. And then, of course, and only here did I actually explain the root of all other afflictive emotions, of all wrong views, of all the ones I described now. The actual root of that is the ignorance or the misperception that perceives the I and all phenomena other than the I to exist inherently. Okay, so anyway, I've mentioned it again and again, and if you read about it, I think to some degree it becomes clear. I mean, more explanation is needed, but if you have some sense of how this is the root of everything, then of course it also makes sense that we need to develop a view of emptiness, of how phenomena really exist. And so this root, ignorance, therefore, brings forth, and this is now where the explanation goes back to the mind and mental factors. I just kind of took off for a moment. I went into just delusions, what they are, and then explained ignorance, which comes down to understanding that the root of all delusions is this ignorance or this misperception of reality on its deepest level. And then I basically went into now, of the 51 mental factors, the 6 primary delusions and the 20. I cannot, after all these years. It's 20, it's not 21, yeah. The 20 secondary delusions. Okay. 6 primary delusions, I'm sure all of us are aware of them. And this division into 6, it actually comes from Vasubandhu and from a Sangha. Those 2 half-brothers who lived in India more than 1,000 years ago, almost 2,000 years ago. So those 2 brothers, they basically gave these divisions. And of course there's other ways of dividing it, but there's a sense that there are 6 delusions that are more grave, that are six afflictive emotions that are responsible for the other ones. But these are the gravest ones. These are the strongest, the heaviest ones. And there's a list of those 6: attachment, anger, arrogance, ignorance, afflictive doubt, and wrong view. Here the ignorance that is meant here is actually not the type of misperception, active misperception. It merely refers to, according to Asanga and Vasubandhu, the people who kind of made this division, who wrote it down for the first time, according to them, it was just a sense of not knowing, of just a non-knowing, not understanding, having this kind of haziness, like not knowing how to write, not knowing how to read, not knowing about certain things, which is different to misperceiving something actively. Does that make sense? This is why this is mentioned here as number 4, and then number 6 you have wrong view. It's almost like if we think of the ignorance here as number 4, isn't that a wrong view either? But as I said, more specifically, the reason why this is as number 4, the ignorance, is that Asanga and Vasubandhu meant the one that's more like hazy, just not understanding. Okay, just if you have that kind of doubt. But anyway, then it is explained then later on when Lama Tsongkhapa and other great masters explained, for example, the ignorance, they just explained it the way we know it. Okay? But there's something more to those 6 primary delusions. The last one, wrong view, is then again subdivided. So there's lots of different wrong views. Okay? So we have already discussed lots of different wrong views, but it's just, again, we move around the mountains trying to get a different perspective. Look at it in a different way again. Be more specific about what kind of wrong views are there. And some of them we recognize, definitely. Okay, so attachment, anger, arrogance, ignorance, doubt. These are described as the 5 non-views. They're more emotional. They're more emotional. So remember I talked about this, I think yesterday, about some afflictive states, they're more emotional. Anger. It holds, it's a wrong consciousness as such, but just superimposing the bad quality, the negative quality of another person. So remember, anger is a mind that focuses, let's say, on another person, or more specifically on a characteristic that the other person has, and then either exaggerates it or makes it up. Right? It was not there in the first place. Okay? Either it totally makes it up, it superimposes it, or it doesn't add, I mean, it doesn't superimpose in the sense that it puts something there that wasn't there, but it exaggerates it. So these are the two possibilities. But that itself is not anger. That's not anger. Just doing that is not anger. It's the wish to harm them. It goes together with those two. So we talk a little bit about this in a moment, about how the anger actually arises. What are all the steps in between? And before we have anger, we exaggerate the qualities, the negativities, and then anger sets in. So there's actually this kind of gradual process. Mm-hmm. So anger is really a wishful mind. It's like, want to harm. Right? So it's not a view as such. It's not this kind of rational mind. It's an emotion. I want to do this. I want to do harm. I want to kick them. I want to do this. I want to, whatever I want to do. Likewise, attachment. Right? I want to have. Exaggerating the positive qualities, that itself is not attachment. First we exaggerate what's there, the other person, and then want to have. Want to have for myself. Right? Don't want to be separated from. That's attachment. Okay, again, like an emotional state. But if you look through all of them, arrogance, ignorance, afflictive doubt, they're kind of emotional states. Here is the ignorance of just not knowing. It's not so much wishing something, but it's just kind of being in the dark about it. So that's why it's still part of the non-views. But then wrong view is like a rational mind. It functions in the same way as a correct rational mind, except it is irrational because its object is just not existent. So then you have 5 of them. This is why the 6 primary delusions are also sometimes explained as 10 delusions, where the 6th primary delusion is again subdivided. Okay, so 5 non-views and 5 views. Okay, attachment. I have explained it in so much before, so there's not much need in going into all its details. But I thought maybe what would be interesting for you is how we get to attachment. How does it actually get there? And it's so hard to put every step in between. And of course, every attachment is unique. Your attachment is unique. Everyone's attachment is unique. I mean, we are unique. So why we are unique? Because our mind is unique. So our positive states of mind, our negative ones, they're also unique. Every moment, in a sense, is unique. However, there's some regularity to it. So attachment exaggerates, it superimposes. And it comes from a mind that also superimposes. It starts with perceiving myself to exist. I add something. You know, I exist, of course. I do exist. You exist. But the way I exist, I kind of add something there. You know, the I is that which I call the summary, or on the basis of this mind and body, I say I. But honestly, to me, it feels there's something separate from my body and mind. Which explains why, when I say I walk, I'm not just thinking my legs walk, and therefore I say I walk. I have a sense that miraculously, my eye is being picked up when I walk. Not just my legs do that, but also my eye is being picked up. So there's a sense there's something separate. There's a sense that something's separate, and because there's something separate, I have to protect that. That thing that is separate. There's something there. And since it's not this, as you and I are different, and not just conventionally, but inherently different, right? Intrinsically, totally, objectively, there's you and there's me. There's a strong divide now. Okay, I'm on this side, I'm on the good side, so you're sorry on the bad side. So if it's your happiness as opposed to mine, oh, it'd be mine. Sorry. If it's not my happiness that's to be sacrificed, all right, I can work for your happiness. Especially if I get something back. But if it's of the two, honestly, I mean, when it comes down to it, it will be mine. And that is so deeply ingrained. Not to be underestimated. When it comes down to like fighting for my life, I'll fight for my life and not for anyone else's. It's so deeply ingrained. Okay? So we shouldn't underestimate it. But The point is to recognize this first. That's the way it is. And therefore, if then I have the sense I, and you are there, in a very strong strong and pronounced way, therefore my happiness is more important. And everything that is for my happiness is weighed. It's according to me. If it gives me happiness, it is good. If it doesn't, it is not. Very, very straightforward in that sense. And so just as if I have a sense of an inherently existent I, something inherent there, there's an inherent other. And if that provides me with with happiness, I look what it is that provides me with happiness, that quality. And again, that I perceive to be objective. It's over there, inherently. And then I blow it up. I only focus on that. The more I'm interested in it, the more I want it, the bigger I make it. And then I want it, I can't be without it. You see how we just add and add and add, right? Keep adding, adding, adding. Okay? So that's how attachment arises. That just constant concretizing or solidifying, putting more there than there actually is. So, first is the ignorance apprehending the inherently existent I. So let's say there's attachment to a car. I don't know why I chose a car, but never mind, it's a car here. It's not that serious. It's more the attachment to another person that creates more problems. People don't kill so much over cars, but over attachment to other people. So, inherently existent car, or the inherently existent positive qualities of the car. Right? There's also that apprehension of the inherently existent positive qualities or of the other person. Those misperceptions induce, it's not that straightforward. Actually, of course, these misperceptions also induce other wrong views, such as the wrong view that this inherently existent person with his or her inherently existent qualities is permanent, is lasting, right? And I have a sense, this is lasting. He or she's always like that. He or she will always be like that, and they always provide me with happiness. That's why I need it so badly. And then on top of that, he or she is in the nature of happiness. They can provide me with happiness. Another wrong view that arises. So you see, it's very complicated. That's why it's not easy to get rid of attachment, because there's so many causes and conditions coming together, making it so complicated. Okay, so unless we recognize that, it's very hard to overcome it. So the perception that they're permanent, the perception that they're in the nature of happiness, the perception they exist inherently. So we need to see all of those to be wrong to be actually able to do something. It's not easy. Nevertheless, it's not impossible. It's just a matter of taking the time and looking and recognizing that these views are not in accordance with reality. And then naturally the attachment will lessen naturally. Can't any other way, because you're not fooled by it anymore. The wrong views, if we're not fooled by the wrong views anymore, it's very difficult to have attachment. It's a slow process. It's really just a little bit less. It kind of comes naturally eventually. Anyway, but the point is understanding how we get there in the first place. Understanding, making that connection between the ignorance and attachment. Because if we don't, we don't want to know about emptiness. Or we want to know because it's fun, but we never really practice it to the degree that we really meditate and really make it part of our own life. Try and every now and then remind ourselves that phenomena do not exist inherently. And of course, attachment is worse than anger. Attachment is worse than anger, because anger everyone recognizes as being negative, first of all. Secondly, it comes strongly and it goes away strongly. Attachment is very creepy. Creeps in slowly, and then it stays. And it provides the wrong promise that it benefits us. It's like something that benefits us because it gives happiness to me. Okay? It doesn't seem destructive. It seems to be very positive. And it's like, of course, I'm sure many of you know the example. It's like oil that seeks into a piece of cloth. Very hard to remove. It slowly creeps in. It fuses with the cloth. And it stays. I mean, all of you, I'm sure, know about how difficult it is to remove an oily stain. So it's similar to that creepiness. And of course, attachment is actually also the root of anger. That's why in the Theravadan tradition, sometimes the root of anger, the root of all delusions, the emphasis not on ignorance, though they do speak of ignorance, the emphasis on attachment, which is really after ignorance, it's attachment. After a perception that the I exists inherently, attachment to the self arises. That's it, right away. Okay, anyway, so understanding that difference and being aware of attachment. Again, where's my attachment? Where's my main attachment? And if we start to hate our own attachment, we start suppressing it. Not a good idea. Pressure cooker effect without, the valve. Very dangerous. An Indian pressure cooker where the valve doesn't function. Right? In India it happens sometimes, they explode. So, very difficult to suppress it, but to just recognize it for what it is. Start recognizing it and then understand it's working. And not, just work with the attachment either via working with the causes, reflecting on impermanence, for example. If we really think about impermanence, that the other person is not permanent, that whoever we attach to, they're changing moment by moment, and we eventually will separate from them. If we just have that view, you will see naturally we're able to let go a little bit more, a little more, and so forth. And so as Рита today pointed out during the meditation, Buddhism is really not so much about gaining this, gaining that, because we're superimposed the whole day already. But it's about letting go, letting go, letting go. Letting go of these views, especially the views that superimpose, seeing that adding that we do all the time is just an adding that's not based on reality. And then slowly we let go, we let go. An attachment, we can slowly let go. Okay. Anyway, but first step, of course, recognizing it. What are its causes? And not recognizing it here. Being able to write about it yourself, maybe in Hebrew, you can explain it beautifully. But look inside and say, oh, all right, this was, okay, this. Then I perceived it to be permanent. Then I perceived it to be in the, just with a relationship, when we're infatuated with someone, okay? How our mind makes us these promises. Oh, he or she's like this, he or she's like that. We never even check. We don't want to check because we may be disappointed. Right? We have this view, they're like George Clooney or like, I don't know, who else is there? Angelina Jolie or, And then we want that so much because we want to have someone like that, so we don't check. We're just fooled by these qualities. And then slowly attachment arises, becomes stronger and stronger, and we're trapped. So to check in every moment. Try as much as we can. And again, I said no excuses, even an 8-hour job. And however many kids you have, you can do it right in that moment, with the kids actually. Attachment for children. It's so interesting when you brought it up. It's so true, right? But again, it's the sense there's only this life. There's only this. They're my children forever, okay? But then when we take it a little further, it's scary first, I'm sure it is. No, it's not easy with children. I think it's the hardest with children. I'm not a good person to talk about it, actually. I'm always fascinated by the love that parents have for their children. And there is pure love there too. It's mixed. There's the attachment and there's the pure love. The pure love is terribly inspiring. But the attachment is terribly painful. Oh, yeah, I know from my mom. She always cries at the airport. She's the only person that gets... Pardon?
Let's accept that it's painful.
Well, if you want to have the pain, sure. Sure. If you like to.
Children, yeah, accept.
No, I'm not saying you should. Is your own choice, but it just makes your life and your children's life probably easier. The stronger the attachment from the parents, it's hard for the children too. Trust me. It's sometimes difficult. It's a lot of guilt. Leaving again for India, right? My mom is the only person that gets past the security at the airport. Still now. She gets through the security to say goodbye one more time on the other side. She gives me the cross every time. Lets me go. Right? No, I'm kidding. But for my mom, if she has to, there's so much pain there. And my mom hates the pain. Trust me, she does. She doesn't like it, but she can't deal with it in any other way.
She meditates?
Pardon?
She meditates?
No. No, she's not a Buddhist, no. Anyway, I'm not saying it's just up to you. It's up to you, of course. This is just if you don't want to have that pain. There's a way out of it, right?
Well, you can be attached, but you can let free, children.
No. Do you have children?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, anyway, it's not part of this discussion here, but I think what he brings up is healthy. I mean, I'm not saying...
It's not extreme.
No, I'm fine, I still have, thank you. I don't know.
It's not extreme.
It's not extreme?
No, I mean, you can't say, don't be attached.
No, that's what I'm saying. No one says this. That's the pressure cooker. That's the Indian pressure cooker system. Don't be attached. That's impossible. But you can look, well, first of all, if you like your attachment, fine. Good. I mean, you know, if you like it, no problem. It's like, you know, if you have, I don't know, some rash, and you like it, you don't go to the doctor. I like my rash, right? I like that scratching and the redness. It's pretty kind of, you know, goes more with my robes. So, okay. I mean, but if I want to get rid of it, I find a cure. Right? I look at what's the cause for it. Do I really want this? Does this bother me? Would it be better if I didn't have it? Right? Still having skin, still having love for my children, but plus the painful aspect, you know, and that's everyone's choice. As Venerable ריטה said, it's our freedom. The Buddha just, you know, there's a cure for certain problems. Do you like them? Well, you know, see and find the cure. If you don't, well, you know, continue on and good luck, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Like, we have the freedom to choose. So in this case too, but don't suppress it, don't judge it. Just look at what are the causes, and then we can naturally actually deal with understanding the misperceptions. And so this is in here. So like how they get here. So it's not just about the anger, but trying to understand where it came from. So anyway, you could read this. I don't want to go into this. There's not enough time. Arrogance, similarly. All of us have arrogance, right? If I'm with the Tibetan, I've been with the Tibetans, right? And I've learned to be humble. But it's just pretense. Because I'm so arrogant that I don't want people to think I'm not humble. So, you know, it's like a way of being humble. I mean, humility is something different. Humility actually comes from deep inside. Okay? So, just what's at the outside, we can't trust. So I know myself better than anyone else, and I know my arrogance. And so therefore, when I'm like kind of, yeah, it's just another kind of arrogance. I'm thinking, I'm a little bit more important. That's arrogance. Just my qualities are a little bit more. Okay, that's just one of the other like primary delusions. And again, recognizing it is the first step. Understanding it's working and catching it before it kind of takes over my day. Okay, and there's different arrogances. I just got those from Vasubandhu's text. No need to go into them. If you read them, I think they're very straightforward. Ignorance, I've said plenty about that. Just because that's number 4, it's in here too. Lama Tsongkhapa says it's mainly the ignorance that refers to the law of karma and so forth, law of cause and effect, but never mind, it includes actually any ignorance, if you like. Afflictive doubt, we've discussed, right? Kind of wavering doubt all the time. And there's a Tibetan saying that two-pointedness is really, if we have that two-pointed mind all the time, that kind of deluded two-pointed mind, never being able to make a decision, right? Is it this, is it that? Can never decide. This is like sawing with a two-pointed needle. Has everyone ever tried to saw with a two-pointed needle? Right? A needle that's two-pointed, right? We never get to get anything straightforward done. So likewise with that mind, always undecisive. That's similar. Does it need to be translated into Hebrew? Sawing with a two-pointed needle? No, okay. So we cannot accomplish our own. The ladies should explain here. Two-pointed needle. At least the ones who do a lot of stitching. Anyway, yeah, I'm not good at stitching. I had someone actually explain that to me in Tibetan. Two-pointed needle. Anyway, so we can never accomplish our own goal if we're like this, that the whole time. So now, the 5 views. The view of the transitory collection. View of the transitory. It's just the view of holding onto an inherently existent I. The transitory means impermanent. Collection means the collection of the 5 aggregates, body and mind. The things that make up the I. That is impermanent. And so collection, different minds, different parts of the body, and that is perishable, that is transitory, changes every moment. And perceiving an I on the basis of those is the view of the transitory collection, like a separate kind of I. That is the view of the transitory collection. The view of holding to extremes is the view that because of thinking the I is permanent, there's only two possibilities. Either I hold that the self exists forever, because if there's such an inherent I, the next step would then to perceive the I to exist forever, right? Or, when I die, to be totally non-existent. Because if it existed inherently, it could either just be always there without changing, or when it went out of existence, like if it really would change, like in one moment, it would become totally non-existent. So either that's the view of extremes, resulting from the view that there's an inherent I. Either it's always there or it's never there. Okay. Then there's the belief in the supremacy of wrong views. I like that one. Because we have wrong views and we feel really good about those wrong views. Oh, you know, when I first came to Dharamsala, I decided I will not believe in past and future lives. Because everyone did it. And I was kind of like this kind of rebellious kind of mind. Oh, everyone does it, and now I want to do the opposite. So for a long time, I was really proud of not believing in past and future lives because everyone else did. I was kind of special. That was a belief in the supremacy of my wrong views. Right? And there are lots of examples like that. Oh, I hold this view, even though it's a wrong view. Of course, we don't think it is, but you know, I have a view. I have an attitude, right? That I have a view. So that's another wrong view. And there's the belief. Okay, so this one, it's very dangerous, especially in the 21st century. Believe in the supremacy of mistaken ethics and religious conduct. Okay? So it actually just refers to believing that certain religious practices, they're called religious practices, bring salvation, bring happiness, where actually they harm us. So I'm sure there's different religions. I mean, even in the Buddhist religion, people hold wrong views that actually harm them. Okay, following someone who's not a highly qualified person and believing this person to be a high lama and they should just do anything for them. It's harmful and it's painful when we find out that we've relied on the wrong person. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama always stresses, check for as long as you need whether the person you're relying on really has good qualities. Okay. So to not be, not go into a wrong direction, to be asked to do practices that have nothing to do with Buddhism. Okay. There are practices like that. I mean, there are, especially when it comes to Tantra. Anything is possible suddenly. So that's a big problem. So that would be a belief in the supremacy of mistaken ethics or mistaken conduct. I gave an example of, in Christianity, the mortification of the flesh. It's not really something that people do nowadays, I don't know. But I don't know, I saw something